Anyway, I'm going to be really brief because I know some of you want to get to the food. So your next one, the last one, is accept responsibility for my faults. Now, Chris explained a few things, but sometimes you may not even know it was your fault. What does it say here? The greatest holdup to your healing for your hang-ups is you. So true. But maybe your attitude is blocking you. Maybe you don't see that. Healing starts with being radically honest and saying, I accept responsibilities for my faults. This is what separates the men from the boys, the young girls to the women. Young girls will always be victims. Children, boys, will always be a victim. Everything is their fault. Everything happened to them, but they won't see their percentage. And rarely is it 100%.
Honest, open, and willing.
Yes. Rarely is it 100% that it's someone else's fault. Rarely, especially in relationships. Especially. I'm going to give you my one little quick humble story with my daughter. My daughter, I was very young when I had her. I was 18, so I'm not going to whip myself. I was very young. So I had her when I was 18, and she was very quiet, little girl, very quiet, never complained, you know, and I was very young emotionally, but I was very responsible. She always had food on the table. She always had good clothes, always a roof over her head, all these things I was very responsible for. But I wasn't very nurturing or affectionate, really. Not really. Because I was young, too. I was taking the responsibilities seriously, but I was not. I was a child. I was a child. And I was still coming from very recent abuse when I was young. So I was still a victim. But I was taking care of my little girl as best as I knew how. Well, later, as she got older, and I didn't even know this. So I'm saying sometimes things happen that you've done you may not even know. Later, when she's older, and we've been friends all these years, I thought, she hit me between the eyes with some stuff that she felt when she was young. And I won't get into all the details, but one of them was she felt invisible. She felt invisible. And at first, I was set back. I was just starting my walk with the Lord. At first, I was set back. And for 2 years, she didn't talk to me. She did not talk to me. It was very painful, very, very painful. But I started to get more and more with the Lord and talking. Well, let me just tell you how the Lord changed it. Years later, afterwards, I think maybe about 9 years ago, I was at Sedona at her friend's house with her, and we're like, I don't know if we're wrapping presents around Christmas time or something like that. And I just looked at her, and I said, can I hug the little girl in you that I never did when you were young? Tears are rolling down her face. She came over to me. I'm hugging her. We're crying, and only Jesus could do that. Only Jesus. Now, if I was going to be defensive and not want to hear what she had to say and say, wait a minute, I was a mom, I was being responsible, you don't understand. You were just a little girl. I was trying to put food on the table. I was trying to survive. All these examples, all these excuses, and it never gotten to what we have now. And even my son shared a few things as he was growing up, as he got older. And you know what? I am so grateful that God allowed me to still be breathing and be part of the healing. So sometimes you can say something to someone else. It doesn't even have to be a child. And you may be very innocent in saying something, but it hit them in another way. Look at your percentage. Look at your percentage. I see married couples coming into counseling. Sometimes one of the couple will come in just because they're trying to get validity, but the other spouse was all wrong. They want someone else to say that. It's never that way. And they get surprised. It is never 100%. I don't care if you have 2%. Take responsibility for it. Now, if you go through this inventory, ask the Lord to reveal things. Family member can say something, and you overreacted so much, you're not talking to him anymore. And then you just forget about him. You're responsible for that reaction. Somebody could do something really mean and horrible to you. Again, you're responsible for that action. Ask the Lord what to say. Ask the Lord what to do, what to say. Humility is huge in this inventory. That word should be written all over the place. Humility. If you're not humble, you're never going to see what your percentage is. Jesus wants us to love him with all of our heart and love one another. Satan wants us to be isolated and separated from our loved ones. I bet you there are a lot of people in this parking lot and out there that are separated from their families because of one little silly statement or something happened. And you just stay mad, and then you stay mad, and maybe you forget about being mad, but you just don't forget, you don't think about them anymore. That's how it works. We have to work on our relationships. This is what it's all about. The Lord wants us to learn to love one another, and that may be just you being the first one, even if it's only 2%, you being the first one and saying, I'm really sorry for this part that I did. You'd be surprised how the Lord can soften the other heart. So, rationalize, I love that down here, as our pastor always says, rationalize is rational lies. I can sit here and lie to my daughter. I could have sat here and lied to my son. I could lie to anybody and not take responsibility, but that's lies. Look at the truth. Ask the Lord. And you may not be able to immediately. You might have to ask the Lord for help. And just admit, you messed up. Just admit. It's so much easier to do that. I've seen so many people hug after one person just said, I messed up. I'm sorry, I messed up. So easy, rather than holding on to your pride. So Chris has got some discovery questions down here. Read Isaiah 1:18 again. I'll go back to that in a minute. But what it's saying is there is no sin too bad, too dark, or too shocking for God to forgive. Nothing is too horrible for God to forgive. So don't get stuck in that guilt. Think of the thing you feel most guilty about. Do you believe God can forgive even for that? Absolutely. So this is a lot to learn. Look back if you do the moral inventory, or just start thinking about relationships that have drifted out of your life and why. And maybe I had somebody, maybe there's something I can do about reuniting us. If you have brothers, sisters, parents, children, look at that. Ask the Lord to take you down that road. I'm going to bring Chris up here again, have him